Find the muscle testing article. To get back to my story, I purchased 3 BioElectric Shields from that woman at the Holistic Conference. When they arrived at my office, I went through my files and I chose 3 of my most sensitive patients and I called each one on the phone. I told them that I was doing a little experiment and if they were willing to be part of it, I would like to send them a silver pendant to wear during their waking hours for a period of 2 weeks. Then I would be calling them to ask them if they had noticed anything at all that seemed different to them than normal. All 3 said that they were willing to participate in my little experiment, and I mailed out these first 3 shields that I had purchased. 2 weeks later, I phoned each patient to ask them both to send me back the shield and to tell me if by chance they noticed anything whatsoever out of the ordinary. I was astonished. One after another, each woman said they would not return the shield to me and asked me to please tell them how much it cost so they could instead buy it from me. I told them they were not inexpensive and I really just wanted to get the shields back and continue my experiment and send them out to another 3 patients. I never got them back. All 3 patients told me their stories and then paid me so they could keep their shields and not have to get rid of them. One of the women told me that she was very sensitive to electric fields from her computer, which of course I had had in my files. I knew that. That's why I chose her. And that although she needed to use her computer for work on an almost daily basis, she could not do so for more than about 15 or 20 minutes at a time, after which she needed to get away from any electric fields for about an hour to recuperate before going back and working another 15 to 20 minutes on the computer. She told me that the first day that she was wearing the shield, she had been working at her computer for almost 2 hours before she suddenly realized that it was not causing her any fatigue and that this had to be coming from the shield. This benefit continued for the entire 2 weeks as long as she had the shield on. The second patient was most sensitive to the type of high voltage lights that are used in most price clubs, although back then they were called price clubs, now they're called Costco. And she stopped there every few weeks for shopping. She always tried to do this during the day because most of the price clubs, now Costco's in our area, have skylights. And so during the day, they love to save money. They were using sunlight and they didn't have to have these high voltage lights on. However, when she was forced to shop at night, she would pick evenings and times that were relatively empty, which for those of you who shop at Costco these days know it's pretty difficult, so that she could get in and out quickly before she began to feel awful and extremely fatigued from the high-pressure lights that they use in Costco's. During the 2 weeks that she was wearing the shield, she ended up at one of the San Diego price clubs. Like I said, they were called Price Club back then, on Moreno Boulevard after dark. And she said that she had been in the store for over twice as long as she could ever handle in the past when it dawned on her that she felt totally fine, as though she had just walked in. The third patient was most bothered by regular fluorescent lighting. She had only incandescent lighting in her home and stayed away from fluorescent lighting as much as she possibly could. Well, since she could only handle it for about 20 minutes, there were some things in her life that got to be a little bit more difficult than they would be for you and I. During the 2 weeks that she had the shield, she needed to take her teenage daughter shopping at a department store, which of course is illuminated by fluorescent lighting. She had done this many times, and so she and her daughter would go together and they found a way that worked best. They would go in together and pick out real quickly a large number of dresses or pants or outfits that they both liked. As soon as she began to feel fatigued or a little dizzy, the mother would leave the store and stand outside in the fresh air, away from the lights, while her daughter tried on everything that they had picked out. After deciding which ones the daughter liked and which ones fit the best, the daughter would then leave them near the dressing room and quickly walk out to her mom outside, and they would basically dash back in again. And again, very quickly, the daughter would try on the pantsuits that she liked best, the dresses, the outfits, and pretty quickly they could do that before the mother started feeling very, very bad. Once again, during the 2 weeks I had loaned her the shield, it turned out that they went out on one of their shopping sprees, and the mother told me that what had happened was that after about 45 minutes of shopping, her daughter turned to her and said, "Mom, how come you're still here and not running out of the store, and what's going on?" At which time she realized for the first time in years she wasn't getting fatigued under the fluorescent lights. Since none of these 3 patients could really quite believe that this benefit could have come from wearing this new little silver-colored shield that I sent them, Each one told me that during the rest of the 2 weeks, they tried a couple things with the shield, without the shield, with the shield, without, just to make sure. And they were very convinced. Well, I was completely astonished. This was basically too much for me to believe. But as all of my patients will tell you, it is my combination of an open mind and a very scientific, extremely skeptical attitude that allows me to keep learning what does and what does not work without ever simply saying something is not possible, because we don't know what's possible. So what did I do? I sold them the shields, and I bought 3 more shields from the company and repeated my experiment with 3 more of my more sensitive patients. Darn if the same thing didn't happen again. 3 more different stories, 3 more different patients that said, no, you can't have this shield back, what do I owe you? It actually wasn't until the 3rd set of shields went out, so that'd be number 7 through 9, that I got patients, a couple which said, no, I'm not sure if it really helped me any, or I didn't notice any difference, but that was enough. So at this point, I was now convinced that the BioElectric shields were indeed doing something very beneficial for these people, for my patients. And so now I had to rethink my prior beliefs about all of the many other chips, pendants, diodes, crystals, etc., that I had previously thought were nonsense. Maybe they all worked. Maybe I was simply being put off by the sales reps who were incorrectly describing this silly invisible shield, that was covering people and protecting them when I knew it couldn't happen that way. So I found all the other manufacturers that I was able, and I purchased 1 each of every other EMF or energy protective device that I could find. It turned out that there were 7 companies that I could find. So for many, many years now, I have been muscle testing every patient who has any type of sensitivities for all 7 of these different shields. All 7 of these different devices. Only one of them is actually called a BioElectric shield. And I would do this whenever any of them would tell me they had a definite sensitivity to energies. However, since supporting one's healthy field seems like it would simply be a good idea, I would also test many other patients just because let's see if it tests, let's see if it supports them, let's see if it strengthens them. So what I have found after testing many hundreds or probably thousands of people is quite interesting. First of all, for whatever reason, a number of people, about 10%, do not test as being strengthened or supported by any of these different devices. Secondly, of the 90% or so who do test as being benefited by one of these products, it's almost always the BioElectric Shield brand that tests best, the one that I'm actually wearing at the moment. I find this fascinating, since this is rarely true of any other type of product that I use in my office. For example, I carry 7 different products from 3 different countries, actually, for helping support the function of the liver. Liver support is very important because our liver has a lot of jobs to do. Well, 2 of these 7 liver products that I use, one from the US and one from Germany, actually end up testing best for 80% of the people that need liver support, in my practice, obviously. The other 20% will test for any one of the other 5 remaining products. And this type of percentage holds true for many other products that I use. In other words, there might be 1 or 2 that test for a lot, but then the others test for some. And yet, the BioElectric Shield was testing for 98% of all of the 90% of people who tested as being benefited by any of these devices. I wasn't used to that. Every time one of the other manufacturers develops or developed, and I continue to do this today, a new or better design for one of their devices, I would immediately purchase this new one because I need to continually make certain that I'm always testing the best and latest of each product against the BioElectric Shield. Again, the BioElectric Shield continues to stay way out in front, even though their product has not been continually improved and updated. To the best of my knowledge, it's still the exact same shield that I bought 16 years ago. So I guess when you make it right the first time, you don't have to keep trying to make it better. Cell phones and